The city of New York just experienced one of the worst months in sports history. I genuinely feel bad for New York sports fans. And I'm a Broncos fan who watched the Dolphins put a 70-steamer on my team's chest. Think about that, the worst game I've ever seen, and I'm like, at least I'm not rooting for the Giants or Jets right now. If Murphy's Law didn't exist, it would have. It would have been invented after what happened to the Jets, Giants, Mets, and even the Yankees. From losing Aaron Rodgers on opening night, to the Mets missing the postseason with the highest payroll on earth, to the Giants following up their inspiring playoff run with historically terrible games, I want to chronicle the sports equivalent of a gunshot wound to the stomach. Week 1 for New York City sports was the gunshot. Abrupt, unimaginable pain followed by more pain, spreading to a greater area with a slow bleed out, causing traumatic multi-systemic shutdowns. New York City sports are on life support, without the luxury of being in a coma. How did it all happen? Well, let's find out. And I've got Patreon shoutouts for new patrons: Nicholas Halley, W. Eden-49, Chris Saddle, Samuel, Spencer, Cameron, Callaghan, Harris, Friedman, Generic Sauce, and Troy Funderburk. Thank you guys so much for the support on Patreon and through the YouTube memberships every month. For all $10 a month donors, we do a Zoom hangout. I appreciate y'all. Hope to see you there. Money can't buy happiness. And apparently it can't buy wins either. The New York Mets spent roughly $364 million for their 2023 payroll, the most ever by an MLB team. $20 million of that going to Robinson Cano, who was released last season by the team. So Cano and Aaron Rodgers are getting paid a combined $56 million to not play. The Giants nickel and Danny dimed Saquon Barkley this offseason, but went all in for QB Dan Jones at $160 million over 4 years after Jones had a career year in which he threw 15 touchdowns. That's it. Bitcoin at its peak didn't yield a return like Jones got for having the fewest touchdown passes in the NFL for a guy who started every game in 2022. And just so everyone knows, the lamented Russell Wilson threw 16 TD passes last year and 2 fewer starts. So he was better.
You serious?
And the Jets, well, they did. They traded for disgruntled Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, swapping first rounders and netting 2 second rounders, and Rodgers' complicated massive contract, one he willingly reworked in the Jets' favor. The same contract that hamstrung the Packers because he wanted it to, he played nice and gave the Jets some much-needed wiggle room. In fact, Rodgers seemed genuinely happy to be a Jet, like he had a restored sense of passion for the game and his teammates embraced him, the way the New York Post embraces drama and hilarious headlines. There was real optimism heading into the 2023 NFL season for the New York City football teams. The Jets' only missing piece was a quarterback, and they got Rodgers. And Rodgers, while not great by his standards in 2022, was a little injured and still better than most quarterbacks in the league. He was going to get the Jets into the playoffs. Jets superfan fireman Ed agreed to stop starting fires all over the city with the arrival of Rodgers. And Robert Saleh's great defense would not go unnoticed this year with Rodgers leading the helm. The Giants saw success with first-year head coach Brian Daboll, who was an instant upgrade over Joe Judge and the clear best hire of the 2022 offseason. The G-Men finished 9-7-1 and defeated the Vikings in the wild card round of the playoffs. The NFC East is a tough division, but Giants fans were right to expect another playoff caliber season, a possible dogfight Settle down, Mike Vick, for the top of the division, a dogfight for the top of the division. All of those hopes and dreams, though, came crashing down opening weekend. Week 1 for the Jets and Giants was your alarm clock blaring at top volume at 5:30 a.m. while you were in the middle of a sex dream. And when you finally open your eyes and silence that demon, you realize you're not in your own bed. No, you're in jail. Don't ask me why they let you have an alarm clock in jail. Probably to wake you up for your prison sodomy. It started with the Giants at home on Sunday Night Football, of course, against the division rival Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones only opens the season in prime time. We know that. In the opening series of that game, the Giants started right where they left off from 2022, running with Saquon, running with Daniel Jones. Something they'd never do again this season. And then we witnessed an omen, or perhaps just a preview for what their entire season would feel like in one single play. After a low snap resulted in a Dan Jones sack, New York lined up for a field goal and had it blocked, and also returned for a Cowboys touchdown. Saquon fumbles later in the first quarter, and Deron Bland returns it for a TD. The Giants had given up a special teams and defensive touchdown less than 15 minutes into the season. Not only did they get their ass kicked in prime time by Dallas, they were shut out 40-0. Daniel Jones was sacked 7 times, which, yes, it will get worse for him. The Giants accumulated an entire season's worth of terrible stats in a single game. Per Opta Stats, they lost the game 40-0. They lost the sack battle 7-0. They lost the turnover battle 3-0. Had a field goal blocked and returned for a touchdown and threw a pick 6. No other team in NFL history has had all 5 of those things happen in the same season, let alone the same fucking game. Like that. That's impressive in terms of how hard that is to do. And to add insult to horrific injury, it was the Cowboys' largest shutout win in team history. One night later on Monday Night Football, September 11th, Aaron Rodgers enters into Jets Stadium. It was something special. Jets fans were alive for the first time since the butt fumble. Kind of opposite of the tush push, if you really think about it. Breece Hall was set to play, making a miraculous comeback from a devastating ACL injury against the Broncos in 2022. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, this team was ready to compete with the Bills. Breece Hall ripped a long run on his first carry, and then shit, Aaron Rodgers played 4 snaps. All of that anticipation for A-God lasted 75 seconds. Aaron Rodgers has literally spent more time talking about vaccines on Pat McAfee's show than he did as the Jets starting QB. Reminder, he's not a doctor or a virologist. He's a football player. And Aaron Rodgers was done for the season after tearing his Achilles. The Jets season was over in 75 seconds, and that's short even for an MMA fight. Sure, Zach Wilson came in, played well, and the Jets won in an electric overtime finish, but they have not won since. Meanwhile, the New York Mets compiled the highest payroll in MLB history thanks to the aggressive ownership style of Steve Cohen. Last year, they were ousted by the Padres in the wild card round, and this year they didn't even make it that far. The Mets brought in Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander before the season and ended up trading both pitchers for prospects by the time the trade deadline rolled around. The Mets finished the season 74-87, 4th place in the NL East, becoming just the 4th team in MLB history to have a losing season the year after winning 100+ games. While that was a season-long implosion for the Mets, it all came to a head as baseball wrapped up at the end of September. The Yankees weren't much better, but they finished just 2 games above 500, a 17-game drop from 2022, missing the playoffs alongside the Mets. Believe it or not, 82-80 was their worst record since 1992, before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And before I failed history class. The Giants bounced back though in week 2. They defeated the Arizona Cardinals after falling behind 20-0. In hindsight, that ugly ass win does look a little more respectable considering Arizona, who does not have an impressive roster right now, is playing tough, gritty football, led by Joshua Dobbs. The Giants appeared to snap out of whatever funk they were in, and Giants fans could tell themselves, hey, they just had a really bad start to the season. 1.5 games of abysmal football, but it's out of their system. Dan Jones back on track. 300 passing yards, a couple TDs. Saquon scored twice, but before the final whistle blew, Barkley went down with a high ankle sprain. In today's NFL, your best player cannot be your running back. Just ask the Titans. And Saquon is the Giants' best player. And without him, Dan Jones just doesn't work. If the Giants are like a pasta sauce, Saquon, he's the garlic and the Italian seasoning. Take him out, and you've just got overpriced ketchup. The Jets, after seeing Zach Wilson hold down the fort week 1, had to go play that nasty Cowboys defense, and Zach Wilson was swallowed whole, like the end of the night with one of his MILFs. He threw 3 interceptions, and Breece Hall, who had an insane 127 rushing yards week 1, disappeared like Aaron Rodgers on a darkness retreat. Aaron Rodgers received innovative medical care for his Achilles injury and is vowing to return this season, which, after week 1, felt like a tiny glimmering light of hope at the end of a very long tunnel for the Jets. Sadly, 2 weeks in a row netted just 10 points from the Jets offense. Breece Hall's yards per carry went from 12.7 to 2.2 to 1.5. Even worse, Zach Wilson was outplayed by Mac Jones. Ugh. The QB who fondled Zach's corner sauce and got away with it. To be fair though, the NFL does miss a lot of grabs when sauce is involved. It gets worse. Daniel Jones managed just 137 passing yards and a pick against the 49ers. The Giants are without Saquon, and Jones had 2 rushes for 5 yards. The 49ers are a really good team, but the Giants lost to them on Thursday night football primetime. New York has 4 primetime games in the first 6 weeks of the season. Dan Jones is to primetime what too much whiskey is to an erection. In 3 primetime games, the Jones-led offense has scored 15 points. Yeah, it's flaccid. That takes us to Monday Night Football, where the Giants' offensive line made Swiss cheese look like a solid option to stop a fucking flood. Jones was sacked 10 times. Receiver Paris Campbell was technically sacked, and the moment Jones had the Giants in a position to get within 4 points, he threw one of the dumbest passes of the year. Only another Jones could possibly top that. Now, the Seahawks' beat down of the Giants was particularly embarrassing because we saw Brian Daboll give up on Dan Jones. Daboll is considered one of the best coaches in the league, and he's getting so little from his 5th-year QB, he just said, fuck it, dude, I'm done. But it gets worse. Daniel Jones became the first player since 1985 to be sacked 10 times and throw a pick 6 in the same game. That's nearly 40 years of football where no offense has been that shitty. Daniel Jones has never won on Monday Night Football, and he has the worst primetime record in NFL history at 1-12. And while the Giants' defense has kept him in games, they are the only defense in the league to have forced 0 turnovers, meaning coordinator Don Wink Martindale hasn't winked a single time this season. The Giants' offensive line, along with Danny Penny's, was crucified by the New York and national media. I say crucified, but unlike Jesus, they did not die for our sins. It was so bad, tackle Evan Neal had to apologize to the fans of New York after saying this.
Why would a lion concern himself with the opinion of a sheep? He added. The person that's commenting on my performance, what does he do? Flip hot dogs and hamburgers somewhere? Are you kidding me?
Honestly, the only thing I want an apology for, Evan, is your lack of understanding on how you cook hot dogs. You don't flip hot dogs. You just roll them. Now, the Giants line is very injured, 3 starters out, plus no Saquon. That's rough, it is. But Dan Jones proved one thing. He cannot elevate an offense. He cannot carry a team when the cards are down. He is not that guy. So he proved 3 things. He can win, but only when everything else around him is going well, which is almost never in the NFL. And maybe the worst thing that happened in that Seahawks game is Daniel Jones fumbled and lost said fumble again. Maybe the simplest explanation here is the simplex explanation. We thought Brian Daboll had cured Daniel Jones of his fumbleitis. Well, like herpes simplex, you can't get cured. You can put some ointment on it, but it's gonna flare back up at some point. It was like all of the things we thought Jones corrected. Back in your face, New York. Through the first month of ball, he and Zach Wilson have never run a play while having a lead. Only 2 offenses in the league have done that, and it's the Jets and the Giants. Those are both horrible and insanely impressive stats, considering each team won a game. The Giants on a field goal to end it, and the Jets in overtime with a special teams touchdown. In terms of quarterback efficiency, Daniel Jones is the worst in the NFL right now, and Zach Wilson is 3rd worst. So I'm sorry, New York. It is as bad as you thought. I would tell you there's hope. But one thing I know about New Yorkers, it's that they can smell bullshit from a mile away, and it's not gonna get better soon. Which takes us to the finale of this shit show. The Jets, in prime time against the Kansas City Swifts, had their hearts ripped out in prime time on Sunday Night Football for all of us to watch. Aaron Rodgers showed up to the game on crutches and a mustache. Taylor Swift was there to watch Travis Kelce do very little. And the Jets, they played well. Their defense stymied Patrick Mahomes, something almost no defense can do. Zach Wilson outplayed Mahomes. In fact, Zach Wilson was the only quarterback to ever outplay him in a game dating back to college in all of the key quarterback stats. He had fewer picks, more passing yards, more passing touchdowns, and more completions. I'd say only Zach Wilson could do that and lose, but I think Dan Jones could too as well. So while there's optimism based on performance, the Jets still lost by 3 because they got screwed by the officials. That loss almost certainly makes a playoff appearance near impossible for the Jets, which shuts that Aaron Rodgers return light all the way off at the end of that completely dark tunnel. This season is a darkness retreat for the Jets and Giants. And as a Broncos fan who is still pissed off that Sauce Gardner was allowed to hold my man Cortland Sutton last season, it was bittersweet seeing him flagged against the team I hate more than taxes. Zach Wilson outduels the best quarterback in the NFL, and all he got for it was this picture of Woody Johnson with Taylor Swift. And now every diehard sports fan in New York City is relying on the Knicks to help their Johnsons get sports Woodies again? Oh dear, what could go wrong there, New York? Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube for more NFL videos. Don't forget to check out Power Rankings before this weekend's set of games.